Right, this is the kit you're going to be constructing, which is the L&B 8-ton guards or brake wagon. This is the version that has the dog storage at the end, as can be seen here, and is the open area for the guard. It comes with binny buffers, lamp holders, handrails, which you obviously have to bend up yourself, doors on both sides, which are fully opening. Just open the one on the other side, so you have full access to the inside. The roof is removable. There you can see the roof construction, and then the inside construction. And then the underside uses two identical bogies, which again are constructed yourself when it comes into focus. The bogies run on ball races on the wheel axle, also ball races on the rotation, and the actual bogie itself runs on two ball races between the bogie and the actual chassis itself, which you can probably just see in there, and there's another one there. That allows this bogie to give you that movement, but no side to side. The other bogie at the other end allows side to side movement, but no fore-aft movement, and gives very, very free turning. This particular model I've constructed using binny nylon wheels. It can be supplied with metal wheels. The metal wheels I use are modified Accucraft Z3s, but they obviously come at a premium, so you have to add £18 on to the overall costs, because there's obviously two bogies. That's about all I can say about it, really. I hope you enjoy building. Any problems, any breakages, drop me an email and I'll post off to you any parts that you require. Thank you. Right, in the next section, there's a slight change to one of the parts. You'll be shown that there are, in the video, 4 of these particular shaped parts. These have now been superseded by same shape, but it's now got 2 holes in it. This is to allow a slightly longer axle to be fitted to the bogie. So if you could, when you're building up the bogies, disregard the picture of this one, and in fact this is what it should look like. Apart from that, it's all identical. Thank you. Right, this is construction of the bogies for the 8-ton L&B Guards brake van. Both bogies are the same for construction. The only difference are the base plates that each one mounts onto, but the actual parts that go onto the base plates are identical. So you can see there's a slight difference there. That's got 2 slots and that hasn't. That's got 2 and that hasn't. So it doesn't matter which one you start with. So what we've got laid out is the base plates, the end pieces, axle boxes, the carriers for the bearings, set of wheels, a bit more that goes underneath that holds it all together, and that assembly there is the bearing assembly for the rotation. So the first thing to do, makes it easy, is to start with the end pieces or side pieces and the axle boxes. So we'll start off by fixing those. It's fairly obvious where they go. They go into the engraved marks with the 2 bolt holes facing towards that cutout, not that cutout, towards the tang there. So that's the way they go up. Now to fit those, I use a PVA glue. I apologise for the slight noise in the background. I've got a fan running. It's quite a hot day today, and it also keeps the super glue fumes circulating and away from me. Right, I've got my PVA going. So the way I tend to do it is a very, very small amount of PVA just in the centre, and then drop him down on, line up with the engraved marks, and do the same with the other one. It's easier to do this now while it's flat on the bench rather than when it's assembled. That's that one done. And do the second. So that's the other side done. I can then put those to one side to dry, and I'll now move on to the next section, which is fitting the main centre bearing. You'll see there's engraving on one side and there's no engraving on the other side. So the bearing, which are flanged, drop into the engraved side. If you hold your finger over and turn it over, you'll see it slightly protrudes. So what we need to do is just use a couple of pieces of wood, just a couple of pieces of the bogie to lay it on, and then we take our super glue and we're just going to run some super glue around the edge where the bearing touches the wood, and that will capillary action down inside. And we'll lock the bearing in position. We're also going to put a cap on, so a little bit of super glue either side. So that's this part here. You'll see it's engraved and undercut on one side and not on the other. So the undercut goes over the bearing, and then you'll be able to line it up with engraved marks and squeeze. And hold that for about 5-10 seconds for the super glue to go off, and that will lock that bearing in position. And put that to one side to dry. Now we'll move on to doing the actual bearings for the wheels. Now they are left-handed and right-handed, the ones with the circles on. So again, if you lay it out as I've laid it out here, so we've got the holes are to the outside, and we've got a kick, for want of a better word. So we've got a left-handed and a right-handed set. So take the one with the circle on, again drop the bearing into it, and then the ones that don't have any circles on are not handed, so they're all the same. But we want to put that one, because the bearing does protrude slightly, so we need to build it up before we actually glue it in position. So again, put one of the plain ones on the back, line it up, the bearing will drop through now, and that piece will line up. So if you do that on all four for the moment, make sure you put the bearing on the side that's got the engraving on. Right. So the next task now is, like we did before, is to glue the bearing to the piece of wood, but try not to glue the piece on the back. Again, hold it firmly down, just run super glue around the edge of the bearing, let it soak down in. Again, do that for all four. Again, put that to one side, allow them to dry off. And we'll start to arrange things to do the next part. But the next part is to assemble one side. So we'll do it, this is all built dry to start with, and we do it together afterwards. Now this is a bit finicky to do. There's different ways of doing it, but this is the way I found. First of all, lay out the parts as we've got there. So we have our top plate, we have two of those, and two of those. Let's move it over a bit so you can see it. With the kicks going like that, away from the lugs. So take the first piece, the two together, and drop them into the end set of holes. It won't go the other way because the slots are different sizes. So then while holding that in that position, drop a set of wheels in, and then offer the next one up, making sure that you're assembling it with the flange facing in, and drop those into the slots. So you can then hold that together with your fingers, as I'm doing there. And then this piece, we have two slots, two lugs, which go into two slots, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 go 1, 2, 3, 4. You'll find that it will just fall into position. Make sure you do it with that part showing. Could wiggle it a little bit, and that's in position. So we can then turn them over, and then we set up and do exactly the same for the other one. So again, lay the parts out. So that's the way we lay them out. Drop them in, drop the wheel in, then apply the other side into the bearing and into the slots. So we've now made the other side, and carefully, without disturbing the other side, drop him into and we've got to start making our bogie. Now at this point we need to add a little bit of oil to the bearings because we won't be able to get to them otherwise. So using a small syringe or some applicator of some sort, we need to apply just a little bit of oil into those locations there and there. We do it now and not before because we don't want to get oil on the outside of the bearing, otherwise it won't glue itself in. So I'll just go and get my oil. Right, this is just a normal 3-in-1 oil. And we just apply a little bit into each of the bearings. and we can start to assemble the rest. So we're gently holding the centre section to hold it in place. Take a plain one. You see it's got a dirty side and a clean side. We want the one with just the 4 slots in, with the clean side facing out. And you'll see that it drops into the slot and picks up on the other slots. Let's give it a bit of a wiggle and it drops in. Then take the one with the spring detail on. Again, we've got a dirty side and a clean side. We want the clean side facing out, and that just drops in. And then we take the final outer one with the detail on, and again that will slot in and turn around. And again, we're holding it in position. We do exactly the same. Clean side out, pick up on the 4, spring detail one, clean side out, and then we put the outer piece on. And then very carefully, while holding it together, make sure everything is pushed down firmly. And then using a small elastic band just over the middle. Just to hold it in position. And then the wheels, check they rotate. And everything, when you look from the side and the ends, all the laminates line up with each other. And then push down to make sure the 4 wheels are in contact. You can also do this on a flat surface or on a piece of track. And we need to turn it over, and now we need to start to glue it in position. Now the order we glue it is quite important. We first of all have to put some glue into that area there. Again, a bit of super glue. Do that in each corner. And then run it up, right up the edge. And give that a minute just to go off. Right, the next task we do, you'll notice the laminates sometimes don't come together as they should do. So that's the next task we have to do, is to actually bring them together. So if you take the outside finger and a wheel and squeeze gently, you'll close up the laminates. And then you can move them with your thumbnail just to line them all up. So we now have to glue those in position. Now this is not an easy task to do because you tend to do it from the top. So again, you can see where the 4, where the two laminates are actually poking up through. Just put a little bit of super glue in that area. And that'll whip down inside. And then using a small bit of tissue, wipe away any excess. So that locks the 2 inner laminates together. Then we do the same on the other side. Again, squeeze. A little bit of super glue. Wipe off the excess. And release. Check the wheels still rotate. And then we do the same at the other end. Again, squeeze. Super glue. on the last side. Obviously do this in a different way, but this is the way I do it and it seems to work for me. Again, check that we don't have any rocking. So the next task now is to actually glue the areas where it comes through, which are those three there, one there, one there, one there, and one there. So we need to move the elastic band. Again, keeping pressure on the outside, a bit of pressure down, and we get a bit more super glue. I've run out. Again, go on to the three that are poking up through. Do the same on the other side. And then the two that are there. Again, the tissue and wipe off any excess. Right, we can now remove the elastic band. And now what we have to do is to put some super glue on this area just to pull the laminates together at that point. I use a very small amount here, so just enough to let it run down in. Try not to get any on the wheels. And just hold it about 5 seconds, and then again you need to wipe off on excess. And we do that in the other locations. And last one. How did we manage before super glue? Again, do a check, got no rock. The wheels rotate nicely. So now I need to reinforce it a little bit now on the inside. So again, a bit of super glue, this time do it on the inside. Just run it up the edge. Right, so we now have to add the top bearings. Right, you have to add the top bearing cover. So we did the bottom one, which is this round piece with a recess cut into it. And that recess drops onto the bearing, just like that. But before we do that, we have to give a spot of oil into this bearing. And then we can glue this on top. So we put a little bit of glue around the outside. Not a lot's needed. Try not to get it into the recess, otherwise that would gum up the bearing. Drop them on and push down and squeeze. For about 5–10 seconds. Right, now we can assemble the pivoting point, or the load bearing point for the bogie, which is made up of the parts you see there. So it's very straightforward how it goes together. If we take there's 4 long ones and 4 short ones, 2 axles, 2 bearings and 4 washers. So we take a long one, push the axle through, add another long one, then add a washer, then add a bearing, another washer, another long one, and another long one. So we've made up an assembly that looks like that. Now the long ones go right there, that's the way to explain it. You notice the bearing has got a flange and that's got a flange, or a slot for the flange. So it can only go in one way. If you try and put it in the other way, it won't go because the bearing flange won't drop in. So it's important it goes that way round. And it's got 4 lugs which go in with the 4 holes there. So it's a bit of a fiddly job, but it will drop in. In my case that dropped in perfectly. And then we do the same on the other side. But I've got the wrong ones here. I've got another 4 short ones. Now the shorter ones are for the other bogie at the other end. So I'll just get the correct ones. So here we have, right, that was a mistake. So again we have the other 4 long ones, we build it exactly the same. 2 long ones together, a washer, a bearing, a washer, and 2 long ones. I will be lubricating these once they're fitted, so if we do it now, chances are we're going to get oil in the wrong place and nothing to glue in. So again you can see how it goes in. We have the flange facing in that direction, which will line up with the slot in there. And we've got 4 lugs which again drop in. Now make sure the axle though is pushed in flush with there, otherwise it'll hit the centre point there. So again, drop them in, move it around a little bit until it all drops in nicely. So this one's going to be difficult. There we go. Right, when they're pushed down firmly, just push the axle in that direction towards the centre so that it actually touches that centre point there. Do the same on the other one. So then, while keeping a bit of pressure, we have to super glue that in position. So to do that, just run some super glue around the end, keep a bit of pressure on it around that end, and do the same on the inside one. And make sure the bearing rotates. And do the same on the other side. I'll go to the inside one. Right, now we can go back to the other one. Run some glue along the outside, particularly around where the axle slightly sticks through, to stop the axle falling out. Just a bit on the inside there, and there, and then do the same on the other side. So again, run the super glue round over the axle, and again a little bit on the inside, and a little bit on the inside. So that's finished our bogie. Now the way the bearing principle works is when this is bolted underneath the actual coach body itself, we have some shiny acetate, nice shiny surface, good bearing surface, and that will actually bolt up and will rest on there. And what that will allow it to do is that when the bogie rotates, there is actually more or less zero friction because it's running on ball races. Now what happens is that obviously this one can rock. Well, the one at the other end, I'll just show you the plate, there we go. Now the one at the other end has those bearings going the other direction. So this one can rock that way, and this one can rock that way. And what happens is they tend to stabilise each other. So you've got a nice bearing surface. You can have slight undulations in the track, it will take care of that. But the general principle is it will hold the coach body rock steady. So construction of the other end is absolutely identical to what I've done there, except the parts that hold those bearings, which are this end now, are in fact the shorter ones. And again, they go in, as you can see, well, if I put it up the right way, of course, they will go in. Again, you can't get the wrong ones in the wrong holes. So that's all straightforward. So if you move on with that, and then when you've finished both bogies, we'll move on to the next section. Right, there we are. I've now finished my second bogie. What I omitted to do was to show you the oiling of the bearings, the load bearings. Now you need a small oiler for this, and you sort of get in to where the balls are, just see them. And do that on both. I'm not too worried now about getting oil on the wood. When I've done that, just give them a bit of a spin, get the oil moving. And there we have two completed bogies. So we now move on to the basic coach construction.